welcome to HJBC and a live delayed broadcast of round 8 of the Spec-5 World Tour from Sonoma, recently updated on iRacing. It's looking good, and so is the championship in Spec-5 World Tour. Qualifying just beginning now. Drivers get 4 laps in this 15-minute qualifying session. Most of them are going to race out there in a hurry as the sun begins to set over these California hills. Is there gold in them there hills? To be decided for some of our drivers tonight. David Haynes here with Michael Derby on our production. There's an absolute multitude of possible layouts for Sonoma Raceway, some that NASCAR have used in the past, some that NASCAR use now, some that IndyCar have used in the past, different versions. This one is called Sonoma Raceway NASCAR Long. And that means it's got this far hairpin at the bottom of the racetrack, and in what previously used to be some tyre bundles is a concrete wall for the apex around there. And there's concrete walls at both sides of the racetrack everywhere around this part near the pit lane. You can get a giant inflatable Toyota sign there as well. Heading up the hill to begin our first qualifying laps. You've got drivers like Brandon Hawken, Michael Foles, Michael Chase, Donnie Moffitt and Eugenio Pellicci just hitting their stride. So no times on yet, but for most of our field, in fact, I think 25 or 26 or 28 drivers are out there right now at the beginning of this session. And so we'll get some representative times very, very shortly. Carousel, long, left-hander, downhill. This is what I'm going to be calling the far hairpin here. Different versions of this have been used by different series at different times. This one's kind of a double apex, coming around to that second apex there, and you've got S's down the lower part of the hill here, the kind of corners that a Mazda MX-5 loves to eat up. Partial throttle, just trying to balance the weight, the front, the rear, keep the car stable, but also turning and holding the line that you're after. The last section of the S's tightens just a little bit, and you often do see people get in a little bit hot, run a little bit wide to the grass there as we watch Michael Foles. He's perfectly on the curb. And then how much of the pit entry do you want to use to try to open up your line into the final hairpin? How close to that attenuator do you want to get? Michael Foles gets pretty close as the first times of the qualifying session come in. 26 drivers are on the track, and Michael Foles will go to the top with that. He displaces Michael Chase. Jared Collins is up into third. Brandon Hawken will just pip and go to the top though. The Canadian driver didn't do about the first half of this season, but we saw him at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, which he loved. And now he's on track again with the Spec-5 World Tour, and his first lap in qualifying is just going to keep things interesting and competitive up the top. Best open class driver at the moment looks to be Todd Martin. He's just completed a lap. It's got him in the 9th overall. Donnie Moffitt jumped up into 4th, put Todd Martin from 8th down into 9th. Cool track temperature though in the very late afternoon. Sun setting through this qualifying and into the race typically means best laps come lap 2, lap 3, sometimes even lap 4. On a really hot track, the tyres overheat early and maybe lap 2 is the best. But with those air temps, track temps, I think we can expect to see a little bit more performance come later on in the session, which is good. It means things aren't settled and completely locked in until the checkered flag waves on the end of the session and everyone's completed 4 laps. Some drivers are just coming around to complete their second lap now. A couple of drivers are out there with no lap time completed. Moffat around the hairpin towards these S's, just getting a little bit of air on some of those curbs. Over the hill there, you've got to be careful. The car wants to push out wide. Really open, long left-hander here, and it's about sticking to that left-hand side to turn into the final corner of the S's and just keep it on the road there. And he's also flirtatious with the pit entrance attenuator, curbing in the concrete wall on the inside. Timing line a long way further around, so you post the hairpin, you've got this kink, and it's only after that kink up here that the timing line is. So a long run from that final hairpin to the timing line, very immediately into sort of double sweeping corner uphill, tight right-hander, almost blind going in. We go to the driver's eye height camera and you see exactly how blind some of these apexes are. Where's the exit curb? You don't know until about here, and you're 3/4 of the way through the corner at the highest point of the racetrack. And that's true of a bunch of places around Sonoma, built into the side of the hill. Second time's in from almost everyone. Brandon Hawken improves further at the top. Michael Folds doesn't find quite as much time. Michael Chase sits third from Michael Coates in fourth. Still Todd Martin, the best open class driver, but looks like Charles Vaccaro and Lee Martin behind him in that class right now. Lee Martin over the line. '18th outright at the moment, and that's his third lap completed. Brandon Hawken completes his third lap, but doesn't go quicker. Might have backed off, try to get some tyre temperature back under control for a fourth lap that he's on now, sliding over the crest of the hill, diving downhill through this tight right-hander. Oh, and a massive slide out wide. I think he knew that lap was done. And now that transmission might be done. Brandon Hawken needs to hope that a 1:44.6 will stand as the fastest lap of the session. Michael Folds is also done, so if anyone's going to beat him, it's going to have to be Michael Chase or Michael Coates or Eugenio Polici, or maybe even Donnie Moffat. Here's Jared Collins promoting his favourite snack food, I've got to assume. Final corner of the S's inside tyres up on the curb. Perfect to the inch, to the 10th of the inch on the exit there. Just flicking up one blade of grass, but using the full width of the racetrack. Then out of the hairpin. You'll know from about here whether the lap's going to be an improvement or not, but you've just got to carry it all the way to the checkered flag. Collins' best of a 45.25 does not improve because that's a 45.3, just short. His fourth laps are not coming up with a whole great deal of change. Peter Rosorkis went quicker, but still sits behind Todd Martin in that open class. Charles Vaccaro is off the track. Jason Stalker's about to complete his third lap. Here he comes, 19th, and then over the line. No improvement, but he's still got one lap to go. He was a tiny bit later out on track by the looks of things. So with 5 minutes left in the session, he will get one more lap completed. Jake DeGrand is out on track. Every other open class driver looks like they're done. Coimbra and Pandicio, 4 laps completed and off track. Rick Wishon doesn't look like he's gone out and set a time. Here is slightly new colours for Jake DeGrand by the looks of things. New livery for the only hands driver, driving with throttle and brake paddles on his steering wheel. So this is going to be the final lap of qualifying, I think, for DeGrand. It says 3 laps completed. His best was a 147.9. I think he took a pit stop for a new set of tyres. And that's why the last lap was a 2-minute 40. So he might stand a solid chance of improving here if he's gone for that new set of tyres, and rather than doing 4 flying laps, maybe sacrifice one of the flying laps to get the tyre change. Through the S's, it is the balance of the throttle, the brake, subtle steering inputs here compared to the hairpins and some of the other corners on the track. Maybe one of the last drivers left out on track in qualifying, Will DeGrand. Bit of a slide to the rear, on the way into the corner, and then a bigger slide right at the apex there. He's done. Eugenio Polici, last driver out on track with a lap in the bank, the number 7 car. So he sits 5th at the moment. I'm trying to judge exactly how hard he's pushing this one. Looks like he's giving it either all or most. Middle of the racetrack, over the crest into the carousel. Long left-hander. Bunch of different lines to take here. He takes an apex somewhere in the middle. Some people will double apex, some people just hold off for a late apex. That's sort of 2/3 of the way through the corner to an apex. And you carry so much speed out of there that it makes this a big braking zone with the hairpin. People definitely try to get down the inside there as one of their preferred passing opportunities in the race. 45 minutes coming up post-qualifying here in Spec-5 World Tour. And Sonoma Raceway is all Eugenio Polici's at the moment. Everyone else is either all 4 laps completed or parked off track. Gigantic commitment through the S's on the exit, and I think that's track limits. And that's why Eugenio Polici will practice the pit entry here, which is a unique one, going around the outside of the final hairpin. The pit lane speed limiter only starts sort of 2/3 of the way around the outside of that hairpin as well. So it's a real street circuit corner. You can see iRacing's attention to detail in all of the scenery on the latest tracks that they've done. They're drone scanning racetracks these days. So they fly patterns, collecting lots of scenery data with the drone. There's the drag strip in the middle there as well. The weird little chicane in the middle of the S's that IndyCar used at one point. And plenty of wineries around here, if that's your thing. There's even a wine train, which sounds like what I might begin on a Friday afternoon. New timing column in the middle of the racetrack there, that timing tower that all the fans can see. And we can see the timing from qualifying. Brandon Hawken is on pole ahead of the championship leader, Michael Folds. More on that later. Michael Chase has qualified 3rd, and it's another Michael in 4th with Michael Coates. We did have the all-Michael podium at Motegi earlier in the season. It was entirely possible, but statistically unlikely, but it happened nonetheless. Eugenio Polici's qualified 5th, Jared Collins. Donnie Moffat is in line behind his teammate in 7th. Mitchell Peake is in 8th. Sean Hayes in 9th. Brian Lemke completes the top 10, entirely occupied by pro-class drivers. Odyssey Adams in 11th, and then Todd Martin is our open class pole sitter there in 12th. Rui Coimbra in 13th, Peter Resorkis in 14th, Mike Oswald 15th, Kirill Bondar in 16th, Charles Vaccaro in 17th, Lee Martin is 18th, and Geordie Fike 19th, David Starb 20th place. Jason Stalker 21st, Tom Athon 22nd, Paul Murgatroyd in 23rd, Paulo Coimbra in 24th, then Ryan Pandicio in 25th. The last driver with a qualifying time was Jake DeGrand. And then Gareth Brocklesby and Rick Wishon, two open class drivers that were in the session but did not go out on track in qualifying. We'll see if they go out on track on the race, because all of our drivers are beginning to grid now on the front straight. There's the pit lane just to their left, and you can see everyone's pit stall, almost everyone's pit stall, is beyond the kink in the pit lane, but there are just a couple of drivers that are before the kink. The pit lane is broken up into two sections with a building in between, so about 20 cars in front of the grandstand there, and then the other 20 are in front of the garages, and there's a bit of a break in between. You got to know which part of the pit lane your pit crew are in, because you don't want to miss them. So here we are on the grid behind the Porsche 911 GT3 pace car. It is long shadows. They're going to get longer across this race. Let's look at the championship points. So in Pro Class, now counting 2 drop weeks, Michael Foles leads Lincoln Fox, and it is just 8 points between them there, first and second. Michael Coates is in third, Eugenio Pollicci in fourth, his teammate Donnie Moffat just behind him, then Michael Chase, Carl Genske, Odyssey Adams, Mitchell Peak, and Mike Oswald is our top 10 in the Pro Class. We'll get over to open class points in a second, where things are super competitive. Anything could happen here with these points margins, with the way that point scoring works for open class. There is a lot of mathematically possible points still on the table to the end of this season. Todd Martin is ahead of Jason Stalker, Paul Murgatroyd, Mark Kruger, and Lee Martin. Jerry DiPiero led early in the season. He's there in 6th from Travis Hewitt, Peter Resorkis, Gareth Brocklesby, and Rob Conahan. But anyone in that top 4 feels very likely. Anyone in the top 6, top 7, top 8 even, mathematically still possible. Whole field of MX-5s for Spec-5 World Tour looking gorgeous in a West Coast sunset at Sonoma Raceway, California. It's golden hour, but it's about to be green flag moment when we get this 45-minute race underway. That front row again is Michael Foles and Brandon Hawken. Let's take a look at Mr. Clean here, with Michael Foles leading that, Lee Martin, Todd Martin, Lincoln Fox, Brian Chabelsky, Mike Oswald, Geordie Fike, Rui Coimbra, Eugenio Pollicci, and Michael Coates. Lee Martin was leading that one. Michael Foles has just pipped him for the lead of Mr. Clean right now. Field packing up a little bit tighter. Now we're most of the way around the formation lap. The pace car comes in, of course, before that final hairpin, and then we're going to try to keep the pack close together around the hairpin before the green flag waves for the leader about halfway between the hairpin and the line. So the pace car's out of here. Brandon Hawken is on pole position alongside Michael Foles. And it's about this kink here where the green flag usually begins to wave. It happens just a little early at Sonoma compared to some other race tracks. Yep, it's going now. Barney there giving his best twirl of the green flag. Brendan Hawken, the pole position sitter, gets the left-hand side of the road. For uphill, it's the inside, but at the top of the hill, he sweeps across the nose of Michael Folds to make sure he stays in the race lead as the track goes back right-hand side. Chicane, blind on the exit. Here, Michael Coates picking up some spots. Jared Collins trying to pick up some spots as there's heaps of congestion around 4th, 5th, 6th, too wide into the right-hander, beginning to head down the hill. Vaccaro's digging up some of the dirt as he's been either run wide or being forced wide. The whole group come towards the carousel. Bit of a top 3 breakaway of Hawken, Folds and Coates because of this battling behind Michael Chase. Johnny Moffat's on the inside there of Peak. Gino Polici battling with him. You can see your top 3, and then this rest of the field, and that's wide out of the carousel again. Please keep your arms and legs inside the ride. Big braking zone into this slightly more open version of the hairpin. There are some tighter ones. Still got to mind that curb on the outside. Tyres will still be cold. Track will not be getting any warmer. So on this opening lap, the balance of the car is a little bit different to how it will have been on your best qualifying lap, how it will have been through parts of qualifying. Someone's going side by side through the S's back there behind Martin, I think. It might have been Coimbra and Resorkis. No, it wasn't. It was fractionally behind that. Into the hairpin, another great overtaking opportunity. That's way too deep on the brakes and a big hit from Geordie Fike by the looks of things. First lap completed. Brandon Hawken still leads the race. Michael Folds is going to try to play the odds as he leads the championship. Hawken is not a factor. It's the other drivers that Folds needs to worry about. Michael Coates there, 3rd. Michael Chase settling into his rhythm, leading a massive group from 4th. Still Todd Martin leading open class. He's only 2 cars up the road from Peter Resorkis. Jason Stalker has gained some position so far as well. So Stalker's gone by Lee Martin and some others. Through the S's again, change of direction, change of elevation. You're just really trying to balance the car with the right foot. Brandon Hawken just gets a tiny bit more space to Michael Folds. This isn't the most slipstream heavy racetrack that we're ever going to go to in Spec-5 World Tour. It's not quite Monza, Daytona, some of the others. There are some points though where you are at sustained full throttle and you can slipstream up to the car in front, but not really the S's, not really the first sector of the lap uphill through turn 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And the carousel here of course is not full throttle. You're trying to keep the car turning tight to a late apex to flow speed off. That's what Brandon Hawken does. Michael Folds gets a good exit. There's just a little bit of slipstream here, and then you see the nose dive when they slam on the brakes. Jason Stalker's getting even closer to Peter Assorkis for second in the open class. And there's one more car between them now and Todd Martin. I think Rui Coimbra might have dropped a spot or two. We're on board with Stalker here following Assorkis. Yeah, the understeer through that final slightly tighter corner of the S's, and then looking for your braking marker into the hairpin. Assorkis turns in very late to a very late apex. Stalker runs the inside of the corner just a little bit more. Kirill Bondar just behind him now as well. Tries to look wide around one side. Has a bit of a slide on the exit. Tiny bit of damage on Bondar's car. I think he had the contact with Fike that's dented his rear and dented Fike's nose. Fike is just back there ahead of David Starb. Martin turns wider into the carousel. Fike's tight line keeps him close. Kirill Bondar gets a good run here at Jason Stalker. Looks to the left-hand side, which will be the outside for the hairpin. They both break at about the same point. Love the long shot through the S's, and you just see all of the Mazda MX-5 Cup cars snaking around in their train. Honda has a bit of a slide with the change of direction turning there, but that's not understeer that some of the others have been struggling with in that point. So that's the balance that you're always trying to strike. Late apex. Bondar has a bunch of quick drivers behind him as well, so this is forming up as a bit of a group here. Stalker, Bondar, Martin, Fike, Starb. The leaders begin to split up a little bit. Hawken and Folds leaving Michael Coates and Michael Chase. Chase has caught Coates just a tiny bit as well, so it's sort of first and second, then third and fourth. And they're pulling away from Donnie Moffat running in the fifth, who's got all of his group of ducklings in a line, including his teammate Eugenio Pellicci. A million possible configurations of racetrack layout here. You've got the end of the drag strip. You've got two different versions of the end of the hairpin. You can have the really, really tight hairpin. This version isn't that, even though the track map says it is. Classic iRacing, a throwback to Auto Club Speedway, where all of the track maps are incorrect for the road courses to what configuration it actually is. So there's your top four just ahead of Moffat leading this group of pro class drivers. It looked like Todd Martin for the open class lead was beginning to get caught, but then there started to be so much battling behind him for Lee Martin and Jason Stalker that they've had to let some of the pro class drivers through or had to defend them, and it's cost them time. So that's working out well for Todd Martin at the moment. It's Lee Martin leading this whole group. Stalker has dropped behind Bondar and Fike to be sandwiched just ahead of Starb. Bondar looking to the inside of an unconventional overtaking opportunity. Lee Martin's got to respect it. Runs a little bit wide, touches a little bit of the grass, and it is grass at Sonoma now. It was just sand and dust in the old version for so long. But at the right time of year, it does rain and grass does grow here. And then a bit further back behind this group, Ryan Pandicio, who didn't qualify, like we said, did start the race. So on that metric, he's up a couple of spots and just ahead of Tom Athon at the moment. Paulo Coimbra and Charles Vaccaro, things have not gone completely swimmingly for. Vaccaro was wide on the first lap. And then Paul Murgatroyd also behind them. Jake DeGrand might have just encountered an issue as well. Oh yes, that would be an issue for DeGrand. Big damage on the front right suspension missing, body parts missing. So that's been heavily into a wall somewhere. Normally we'd bring you a replay, but technically it's a very difficult thing to do because that would be Inception, because this is already a replay. And we can't afford to pay royalties to Christopher Nolan. This is our lead group, and they're looking like the class of the field as well at the moment. Hawken quickest in qualifying. Michael Folds, the quickest driver so far over this season. That's way wide for Michael Chase back there in fourth. He is mowing way up the hill, riding the berm like a motocross bike. But that's cost him big spots. Eugenio Polici's through in fourth. Donnie Moffat's through in fifth. And he's just going to be ahead of Mitchell Peak here is seventh and eighth. So from fourth back to seventh by running way wide, picking up some understeer through the carousel has not helped Michael Chase. It's Michael Coates sort of all alone in his little group, not quite with the leaders, but definitely ahead of that next group, sort of 5 seconds behind him. So he'd like to catch these leaders, but it's not necessarily happening right now. Brandon Hawken wide out of the hairpin. Folds keeping it tight, different lines in play. Feels like a street circuit around this part of the racetrack as it's lined by concrete on both sides. And you can Google Street View this racetrack. It's very interesting. I love a quirky Google Street View. Like the Puffing Billy Heritage Railway in Melbourne, Victoria. You can drop the pin on Street View and go along the railway. You can go along a couple of racetracks, some of them street circuits, but here at Sonoma, they opened up the racetrack for the Google Street View car to cut a lap. And there's a couple of Easter eggs in that one because we're not far from Silicon Valley and a lot of those tech companies' headquarters. So they put a little bit of effort into the Google Street View of Sonoma Raceway. Good run from Michael Folds, 2 tenths behind the lead, and the time and the stopwatch doesn't matter. It's just car lengths now. Say he's within about a car length of Brandon Hawken, right underneath his rear bumper in the slipstream zone, running close to the leader, just able to drive 9 tenths rather than 10 tenths and see the lead of the race still just ahead of him. It's the kind of steering inputs necessary through the S's. Subtle elevation change in addition to each corner having slightly different camber, slightly different radius. It's almost randomly generated sequence of corners there. Just a little difference in flavor to all of them. Down to first gear. Still taking that slightly tighter line, like point towards the apex, rotate aggressively, straighten out and slam the throttle in a V shape is kind of how Michael Folds is attacking that one. Some part of the lap where I'm sure the sun is straight in their eyes. So if, like the village people, you go west, you better have a tinted visor. That's wide from Coates in his pursuit of the leaders. He'd actually caught up a little bit, come from 2 seconds behind the race leader to about 1.3, and that's cost him just a couple of little tenths, running wide what I'm pretty sure is turn 5, but I'm always confused by exactly how the corner numbering works. And there's your top 3, and then space. to Eugenio Pollicci. Got his teammate Donnie Moffat just behind, but Moffat's coming under attack here. To the inside goes Michael Chase, trying to get a couple of his spots back. Tiny bit of elbows out, maybe a tiny bit of contact there, but it looks like by the time they go into the S's, Michael Chase has come up from 7th place back into 5th. Some contact further back in the field. Didn't catch who it was, but you can see the smoke in the air. I think there might have been a coming together either in the hairpin or on the exit of the carousel. The wind speed of about 12 miles an hour, blowing the smoke very quickly across the racetrack from the scene of the crime, dispersing the evidence. Looks like Brian Lemke's lost a couple of spots. He was inside of the top 10. Now he's back in the 13th. Could have been Lemke. He's taken to pit entry now as well. So just hitting the start of the pit window. And the first two takers are Brian Lemke and Mitchell Peake. There's 4 or 5 drivers who look like they're in this part of the pit lane. Oh, there's 4 easy ups there. Everyone else is going to be around the kink in these parts. So, Mitchell Peake has overshot. That's just going to cost him 1 or 2 tenths. He's going left-hand side tyres. Looked like Lemke was going for fuel only here. Hard to say which are the most important tyres here at Sonoma, because clockwise racetrack, but then you've got a couple of quick anti-clockwise corners, like turn 1, like the carousel. The S's are pretty evenly balanced, but I guess you've got the 2 right-hand turning hairpins, where Michael Chase is trying to this time go around the outside of an Absolute Motorsport Passalith car. The inside worked on Donnie Moffat. Eugenio Pollicci will give him no space around the outside. Typically the way you see an overtake stick around there. But the heat's on in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Jared Collins along for the ride there. And I think there might have been some contact around 8th, because we've lost the tail end of our top 10. And then we've had a couple head for pit lane. So you can attack pit entry here. No pit lane speed limit until you're around the hairpin. Eugenio Pollicci, Michael Chase, Donnie Moffat in. Another one of the tracks where you can gain a lot of time by really practicing your pit entry. Lee Martin is going to be in from what I think was 3rd in the open class. Kirill Bonder and Jason Stalker follow him as well. Tidy pit entry. The teammates are all going left-hand side tyres, and so will Michael Chase. There's the media centre just back there, Wave Derby. So certainly, if you're thinking, I'm going to take tyres at my pit stop, you want to bring your pit stop earlier so that you get a bit of an undercut, so that you get to use those new tyres. If you're thinking no tyres, fuel only, then you normally want to run deep to the end of the pit window to keep your Mazda MX-5 light. This is a race off pit exit between Kirill Bondar and Lee Martin, that apparently Kirill Bondar is just going to win. So I think when we see some pit stops later, we might see fewer tyre changes than we're seeing from the early takers, and we're not seeing our race leaders just yet. There's Hawken and Folds and Michael Coates. We saw a lot of the drivers around 4th and 5th pit, so an even bigger window opens between our podium drivers for the moment and the rest. There's Jared Collins, he carried on. Sean Hayes, Todd Martin's leading open class. Odyssey Adams and Rui Coimbra just behind him. I'd like to borrow that inflatable Toyota sign and bring it to my niece's birthday or something. It looks like it's a oversized party celebration. Is Fike in his pit stall? He is, and he's going to get some repairs done. So after he's big hit on the nose. He's going to do the popular California thing and get just a little bit of nose work done. Different lines in a multitude of places between Brandon Hawken and Michael Folds is so interesting to see. That Hawken really does sort of run a big swooping arc through some of these corners, and Michael Folds is keeping it a little bit tighter for the shorter distance, but less swoop and arc. You can commit late to pit entry if you want to here, obviously, but these three are not going for it. Timer in the top left gets confused on a replay, so that is actually incorrect. We're only just approaching the halfway point of this race. And we're going to get some teammates. Odyssey, Adams, and Rory Coimbra will pit together. Here come the buddies. Oh, just seeing that Lee Martin's pitted twice. He might have got a penalty on his pit exit. Remembering he was side by side with Kirill Bondar, it could have been an unsafe pit exit. But Bondar is letting him by? Odd, but those two drivers are down in 24th and 25th. Here comes Adams and Coimbra off the pit exit. There's Charles Vaccaro coming down the lane. David Staub's already being serviced by his crew. We're left with a top 8 that haven't stopped yet. Brandon Hawken has led every lap of this race so far, but Michael Folds has almost never been more than half a second behind him. Collins in 4th. And when it comes to your pit strategy, you usually want to be decisive. So if you're going to pit early, you're going to try to pit basically as early as you possibly can. If you're going to pit late, you're going to pit as late as you possibly can. In the middle, you don't get the benefits of a tyre undercut. You don't get the other benefit of running the car as light. You sort of half and half is not the best of both worlds on that usually. So we had our early flurry of stops. We've got the leaders staying out. It's Mike Oswalt and Peter Rosorkis. See 1 or 2 tyre tracks through that grass on the exit of the carousel. We know one of them was Michael Chase. A few other drivers appear to have made an excursion there. And again, we'll shoot by pit entry, but I think there's been a problem for Paul Murgatroyd. He's towed to pit lane, similar to what we saw for Jake DeGrand, and that looks like even more damage for Murgatroyd. So that's, yeah. I said there's no visible exit there at turn 4, I think they want us to call it. And he's just pushed a little bit wide, found that the dirt had no grip. And away he has gone. Our leaders have stayed out. Again. And so too has Coates, Collins, Sean Hayes and Todd Martin. But everyone else has been through pit lane. Shortest stop that I see is Michael Chase, 14.9 seconds. There's a couple of other 15, 16 second stops. And the deciding factor in these pit stops is how much fuel do you think you need? Some drivers a little more than others, so some 17 to 18 second stops if you need that extra half a gallon. Now we owe Christopher Nolan money. Not using any Hans Zimmer music though on HJBC. We've got a different license and a late dive to pit entry for Michael Folds. He sees Brandon Hawkins going to carry on, but that is such a dive to pit entry. Like I said, pit lane speed limit only starts there. He has attacked that pit entry, got a bit of understeer, and I guess you can graze the wall if you're headed to your pit stall afterwards. Michael Folds is in. Gee, Paul Murgatroyd's car is in a sad, sad state. Right there. Sean Hayes coming in as well. Todd Martin coming in, leaving us just Hawken, Coates, and Collins that haven't stopped yet. So what work is Folds getting done? Well, it's 18 minutes to go, right to the tail end of the pit window, but he's still thinking he can get those left side tyres for free. So that's what he'll do in a 16-second pit stop. Martin and Hayes, it's not looking like any tyres. Todd Martin still in the hunt for an open class win here today at Sonoma. If this pit stop can be good, he's got to come out ahead of Peter Resorkis, and I think he will. Here's Resorkis just navigating the hairpin at the moment. And then second in class is looking like it's become Ryan Pandicio. So from the rear of grid, oh, that's a bit too much smoke. I don't think it's going to be Texas barbecue. I think it's going to be tyre smoke, which does not smell nearly as good. Although, there are worse smells in the morning. I do like the racetrack smell, but it's just Pavlovian response at this point rather than it actually being a particularly great smell. Brandon Hawkins pitting in from the lead of the race, so one lap later than Michael Folds, who had a 46-second pit lane transit with a 16-second stop. Hawkins will want this to be close on the exit if he can manage it. And the pole sitter will have the very, very final pit stall right at the exit. Service gets underway, and that service includes tyres on the left-hand side of the car. Here's Michael Folds at speed on the front straight. Pit stop almost done now for Brandon Hawken. So he'll roll and try to get up to speed, and I think he'll lead, and he might have a... nothing. He'll have nothing. To the inside goes Michael Folds, arriving at pace. Our leaders are side by side with 16 minutes to go. I think Michael Folds knows the championship picture. Couldn't get the move done. Just will wait for a second here. Couldn't be any closer over the top of the hill. So he'll look to the inside, do what he's always done, dive straight for the apex. Sun setting there makes it look like gravel's been dragged onto the racetrack, but it's the racetrack and the sun absolutely parallel. So now Michael Folds is ahead of Hawken. Coates and Collins haven't pitted yet, so actually Michael Coates leads the race, at least until he comes to make his pit stop very shortly. Folds ahead. Michael Coates was about 2.5 seconds behind the leaders when they pitted. So if his stop goes all to plan, that's about where he'll be again. And unless you're 15 years old, you can't be solely powered by Cheetos. So Jared Collins needs a pit stop for more fuel as well. Coates and Collins will become our leaders once again. Sorry, it's Folds and Hawken will become our leaders once again. Yeah, not too far away from the lead, but that ship has sailed now for Michael Coates. So it looks like it'll be 8 more laps to run home, and if anything, Michael Coates has lost quite a bit of time to these leaders. His previous lap and his in-lap might have been not especially great, and his pit lane transit time's been about a second longer as well, so I don't know where to account for the other 2 or 3 seconds. But he is not as close to the leaders as he once was. A little bit closer to Michael Chase than he once was. Junio Polici's got his teammate Donnie Moffat rear gunner ahead of Jared Collins, who's rejoined just behind them. Next group's got Todd Martin leading the open class in it, so Odyssey Adams there in red and black, Sean Hayes in black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, and then Todd Martin, the open class leader, sits in the 10th overall. But he can see 8th and 14th overall is where Resorkis is, so this is a big points haul day potentially for Todd Martin. The higher you finish overall, the more points you get as an open class driver. So those days where you can really punch above your weight, there are big points swings that are possible in the open class championship. It remains mathematically possible to close very large gaps very late in the season in that class. Less so in the pro class. Around the outside, Brandon Hawken pulls out of the toe, and if he can hold around the outside of 1, he can get to the inside of 2. Michael Folds has got to respect it, but Hawken was only just there. Now this corner's tough enough when you're not side by side, because it's blind all the way over the hill, and Michael Folds holds on to the race lead. 7 laps to go. Sunset Bend without the bumps. There's 1,000 lines through the carousel. Michael Folds was just a little bit wider. Brandon Hawkins a little bit tighter, and he looks to the inside of the hairpin. And then they meet again at the second apex. And going all the way around the outside, Michael Folds holds on, but there are a lot of laps to try to sustain this sort of pressure from Brandon Hawken, the pole sitter. Not a factor in the championship. So Michael Folds won't want to throw away a podium. But Michael Folds wants to win. That's the racer's instinct. Difference of lines again. See, Hawken goes a tiny bit wider. Michael Folds parks it, straightens it up, uses all of the revs of first gear. Let's see. So it's flat out sweeping towards the carousel. Turn in, track drops away. Then the grip's pretty steady most of the way through. Then the grip comes back a little bit just as the road levels off. That's where Brandon Hawkins starts to get a run. Backs off, but almost tricks Michael Folds into running wide through the first bit. Comes back for the second with a tiny bit more balance. Hawken climbing all over the curbs. Michael Folds trying to keep the car flat and level away from them. Turns in later here. Still understeers a little bit wide. Grass being kicked up everywhere. Apologies if you have allergies. Now we'll get a bit of overlap again. Michael Folds, I think he's going to lose out here because that's the short run from Hawken, who cuts back across the nose just like he did on lap 1 to defend the race lead. Yeah, that's the side of the road that Hawken wanted, and he gets the race lead. Eight seconds still ahead of Michael Coates. Michael Chase in fourth has re-solidified himself in that position with his stop and racing away from Polici and Moffat. Still got Jared Collins just behind. There he is. What is he? Adams getting away from Sean Hayes. Sean Hayes just ahead of Todd Martin. Brian Lemke, Mike Oswald. Opposite sides there. One almost entirely black car, one almost entirely metallic purple car. I love you can just see our race leaders in the background there as well. Great views from a lot of vantage points here at Sonoma. There's Peter Rosorkis, Geordie Fike. That starts up a couple of spots after qualifying. So's Tom Athon. Ryan Pandicio still sitting in third in the open class. Next car that's actually for position for him is Lee Martin, because it's you've got Jason Stalker on track there, who's a couple of laps, perhaps even 5 laps down after sustaining some damage. I think the race leaders will have 4 laps to go. Michael Folds has already battled wheel to wheel with Brandon Hawken, who's taken the lead back. So both of them have shown a fair bit of their hand about where they think you can pass here. We've seen side by side here, side by side up the hill of turn 1 into turn 2. Not seen any optimistic lunges to the final hairpin just yet, but you always think of that as an overtaking possibility at Sonoma. But not if you're that many car lengths back. Minutes 40 on the clock. I'm trying to do the numbers quickly in my head. I think it's 3 more laps, but I'm just not quite certain yet. Jared Collins almost reach out and touch the wall there. I'm surprised his mirror's still facing the right way. That's one of the changes to this version of Sonoma Raceway as NASCAR races it, that there's a lot more concrete walls and a lot fewer tyre bundles. I feel like I'd be quite confident that that graphic that says final lap is wrong. Now I think about it, I'm not sure. I think it's still 2 or 3 more to go. This is an issue we have had before with from the replay. Some systems don't quite like it how you'd hope. It's actually surprising that as many of them do work. I think Jared Collins is going to start to get some more elbows out 5th, 6th and 7th, forcing Donnie Moffat to get just a little bit defensive at the hairpin earlier, and he sits 2 car lengths behind going into the S's. Back of the envelope says actually 3 more from now. With the amount of time we got and the pace we're doing, minute 45s. No hint of a white flag yet from Barney the flagman. And this is Collins applying the most pressure of just about anyone in the top 10. He made quite a late stop compared to Pulici and Moffat, so if there's a tyre difference to be had or a fuel difference to be had, he might be able to drive that home about now. Both of them almost look to run out of road at turn 2. I think this is 3 and 4, or 3 and 3A or something. Again, just a little bit wide from Moffat. Dirty up his left side tyres. Flat out, at least for Mazdas, to the crest of the hill here before you need a little dab of the brakes to slow the car, to put weight on the nose, to get it to begin to turn in, and then you get that rotation, you can balance a little more of the throttle and then open it fully wide on the exit. Not as close this lap as the last. Now, is it 2 more or white flag for our race leaders, Brandon Hawkins and Michael Folds? Hawkins put the foot down this lap, almost half a second quicker than Michael Folds, almost taking the race lead out to 1 second, the largest it's been all race, because these two have been, to this point, inseparable. 2 more laps for Brandon Hawkins to show what he's got. Michael Coates sitting in 3rd, Michael Chase in 4th, Eugenio Pulici, Donnie Moffat and Jared Collins, close as these 3 have ever been. What's she doing? Is he got some fuel concerns? It is actually touch and go that we're getting this extra lap of the race based on the speed of Brandon Hawkins and Michael Folds. In any timed race, it can happen. You're like, how many laps is it going to be? Well, it depends how quick the race leaders are. And when you're 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever, it's not how quickly you go, it's how quickly the race leader goes. Todd Martin lost a lot of time last lap. I think he lost spots. I think he's definitely dropped behind Hayes and Oswald. Is it one mistake that's cost him spots, or is it fuel? Someone's out of fuel, and that's Eugenio Pulici. He's saving big time. So Donnie Moffat's gone past Eugenio Pulici. They're both trying to rolling roadblock Jared Collins. But if the fuel situation's that dire for Eugenio Pulici, there's only so much you can do to keep someone behind you. If you're off throttle and they're on throttle, they're going to get past you eventually. I want to clear off that windscreen. 25 seconds left. Race leaders crossing the start-finish line. Should be white flag. There's Polici going into the final corner. Jared Collins just behind him. Michael Chase, is he beginning to save a little bit as well? It's Barney waving the white flag, so it's one more lap of Sonoma NASCAR long for Brandon Hawkin, leading by 1.2 seconds from Michael Folds, who'll still extend his championship lead with a podium today. Michael Coates in third spot, Michael Chase in fourth. But it's Eugenio Polici whose fuel you got to worry about here. He's let Donnie Moffat through. Now he's going to try to hold up Jared Collins, but has he done all of his saving and now he's good? Or does he need a big last lap coast? It's just a tiny bit wide going into the carousel, fuel be damned. And that gets him just half a car width wide and gives Jared Collins a sniff. He thinks he's in the game here. They both park to the inside, the Absolute Motorsport Athlete teammates. So Jared Collins sails round the outside, trying to sweep up Eugenio Polici. Polici's tight line is a much shorter distance, and they're going to be side by side heading into the S's. The teammates almost trip over each other. Brandon Hawkin has nearly 2 seconds on Michael Folds. First and second place, they're going to exit the hairpin. Barney will change to his sidearm, swapping from the white flag to the checkered flag as Brandon Hawkin wins at Sonoma from Michael Folds. Michael Coates joins them on the podium. Donnie Moffat and Eugenio Polici need... Oh no, it's a slide from Polici. Big slide, big loss of momentum. Jared Collins is going to stay flat out, and the checkered flag's just going to come in time to save the teammates. Collins had an opportunity there that he couldn't quite see. He's on his way to 7th place. That looks like Lemke running out of fuel. So Odyssey Adams, Mike Oswalt, Sean Hayes, and Todd Martin is going to get him. Todd Martin gets back to 11th place to secure those points and the open class win. Lemke coughs and splutters to 12th ahead of Rui Coimbra. Peter Asaukas will be second in open class. Jody Fike, David's Fike almost running out of fuel maybe there. Starb, Athon, Pandicio and Lee Martin are going to battle for third in open class. They're side by side through the hairpin. Pandicio's ahead. And this is to be open class podium. Oh, Pandicio's running out of fuel. Lee Martin takes third from him on the run to the checkered flag. Vaccaro just behind as well. Was ready to pick up the crumbs, but Pandicio just had enough momentum. Last car on the lead lap. Looks like it's going to be Kirill Bondar. And he's got a bit of damage on that car again. Okay, so just before we get to the results, Director, see if there's anyone parked before the carousel, because there is a jump here and I think everyone's going to take it, and it's the viewing event of the decade. Oh, okay. It's Coates. Oh, we'll get to the results and come back to it. Brandon Hawkin wins from pole, but he had to fight Michael Folds. Michael Chase finishes third. I had Michael Coates in third. No, that doesn't look right. Todd Martin got 11th. I'm quite confident that Brandon Hawken won from Michael Folds and Michael Coates. Michael Chase in 4th, Donnie Moffat in 5th, Eugenio Pellicci 6th, Jared Collins 7th. That was super close on the final lap. Odyssey Adams finishes 8th, Sean Hayes in 9th, with Mike Oswald completing the top 10. Todd Martin got the open class win in 11th. Brian Lemke in 12th, Rui Coimbra 13th, Peter Resorkis 2nd in open class there in 14th, Geordie Fike in 15th, David Starb 16th, Tom Athon 17th, Lee Martin executing a late race pass on Ryan Pandicio for 3rd and 4th in open class, just ahead of Charles Vaccaro 5th in that class, Kirill Bondar 21st outright from Paulo Coimbra 1 lap down, Paul Murgatroyd 2 laps down, Jake de Grand 2 laps down, Jason Stalker 4 laps down. And then Mitchell Peak. And then Gareth Brocklesby, Rick Wishon, and Rob Conahan are not classified finishers in this. Can you try to wind back to people making the post-race jump? See if I can get a name for you. Vaccaro. Oh, I don't think the replay's quite caught it as I'd like, but this is one of the jumps that you can take. Not in the race, you shouldn't, but it looks like Tom Athon, Peter Resorkis. Ooh, ouch. Well, well done, everyone. Celebrating post-race respectfully, hopefully. Yeah, here we go. So if you straight line the exit of the carousel, look for the gap between the concrete walls. Whee! How's the airtime for Tom Athon? Now, we don't have our pro winner or our open winner standing by, regrettably, but I reckon there's some others. So I reckon Jared Collins will join us on the line now. Very exciting to see that last lap battle between Moffat and Pellicci, and they're sort of, ganging up on you.
Yeah, a little bit. It was a good race, though. It was a lot of fun with them, especially the last lap. Yeah, I didn't realize until after the race that they were teammates and they they could make it tough on me, but it was a lot of fun racing against them both.
Did you notice at the time that it was sort of the lap count and the fuel that was sort of putting both of them under a bit of stress?
Yeah, I knew, especially because I ran long, so I knew I had fresher lefts, and I think that really helped in general, especially around the hairpins, to keep my momentum up. It's just a very technical, difficult track to pull off a move. The straightaways are just long enough where you can kind of peak, but not really, carry the momentum and make an easy pass. You kind of got to get your elbows out, and I guess I got to do that a little bit more next time. But it was a lot of fun racing against them both.
Well, we won't have to wait too long to see if your, arms, shoulders are a bit stronger next time out.
Yeah, I imagine Monza is going to be quite the race and quite the show. Yeah, just huge draft. I think lots of circles around each other. I think will be in store for us in a couple days here.
Awesome. Hope you enjoyed the race. Hope you enjoyed your day, and we'll see you for the next round.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thanks for putting it on.
Well, that might be about it from Sonoma. Brandon Hawken comes in, takes the pole and the race win. Michael Folds does a bit of championship management as we complete race 8 of 10. And in the open class, Todd Martin, likewise, just a handy little bit of points from 11th place should keep him well placed with 2 rounds still to run. They are Autodromo Nazionale Monza this Thursday, and then the championship finale December 18th is 90 minutes of Shell V-Power Motorsport Park. So can roll out plenty of good facts, local knowledge for that one. It's just 2 rounds to go for Spec-5 World Tour, and both championships, Pro and Open, still have a battle on our hands. We'll see you Thursday night here on HJBC for race 9 of Spec-5 World Tour from Monza.